This is J. Krishnamurti's fourth public talk in Madras, 1976.
Can't you make the weather cooler? You may remember that we have been talking about the transformation in our consciousness. Because man, which are human beings as we are, we have lived, I don't know how many millennia, millions of years. And though we are progressing technologically extraordinarily rapidly, there is very little psychological change in our consciousness, hardly any. And it seems so important that as one has such a short life on this earth, which is our earth, that to live in a small area of our consciousness with all its conflicts and problems and contradictions becomes more and more mechanical and rather ugly, stupid, and vain. If one has inquired into this question at all, whether it is possible for human beings to radically transform their consciousness themselves, when one puts that question to oneself, there generally is the answer that it's not possible, it will take time. That evolution, the slow process of evolution, will eventually solve our problems. So one thinks time, that is, not the chronological time, but time as a means of bringing about a radical psychological revolution in oneself is necessary. That is time to move from here to there, psychologically speaking. That will take time. So we invent a future life or live, as most of us do, in remembrances of things past. And to break away from the past and to start totally anew, one thinks to oneself, time, that extraordinary factor in human consciousness, is necessary. We are talking also, we'll go into that presently, we are talking also, there are several principles in this consciousness. One is, as we said, the deep hurts, the hurt, the wounds, the psychological wounds that one has received from childhood to school, college, university, if you are lucky enough to go through them. I'm not at all sure that you are lucky if you go through them. because they only condition you much more than what you are already. We receive hurts from parents, through education, through marriage, through every form of a relationship. There are these deep psychological hurts, wounds, of which most of us are unaware. We talked about that a little. As long as those hurts remain, one is isolated. One withdraws from all relationship more and more. And if one is actually in relationship, then every form of violence, resistance, quarrels, all that ugly business goes on. That's one of the factors in our consciousness. The deep conscious or unconscious wounds that we have received, with all their consequences. I don't think most people realize the gravity of such a hurt. And also we talked about one of the factors in this consciousness is relationship. Relationship between two people, man, woman, or between friends. That relationship is between the images that you have about another and the other has about you. And hence, it's a verbal, structural, put together by thought. And that thought denies love in relationship when there is this image. We also went into that. And also we talked about fear. That's one of the factors in our consciousness. Deep-rooted, abiding fears, of which one may be conscious or unconscious. And we went into the question whether it's possible to be free of these fears. We pointed out that it is possible, totally, completely. So that our actions are not dictated by fear or by hurt. We also talked about, yesterday, about pleasure. The whole demand and the pursuit of pleasure. And in this consciousness also, there is sorrow, there is the fear of death, and the everlasting question of which human beings have put to themselves from time immemorial. What is the meaning of life? If there is any significance to life at all? And is there something which is eternal, which is timeless, which is not put together by thought, which has not the corruption of thought? So all that is the content of our consciousness. And that content makes that consciousness. Without those contents, our consciousness would not be. So we are talking, or rather investigating together into the possibility of bringing about a radical transformation in the content. That's what we have been investigating together. When we say together, I mean together. I am not speaking to you and you are merely listening to me as a speaker, agreeing or disagreeing, accepting or denying, but together, you and the speaker are investigating, exploring, examining, taking a journey into this whole human existence, which is our consciousness. And if you are at all serious, and I hope you are, it becomes very important to find out for oneself, living in this dark world, in this world of confusion, in this world of great travail, in this world of utter poverty, inwardly, and external poverty also, to find out for oneself whether it's possible. And so, to be a light to oneself in the world that is so corrupt, so dark, one has to be a light to oneself, because you cannot possibly rely on anybody with regard to this. Nobody, including the speaker, especially the speaker. I really mean it. One has to become, or one has to be, not become, one has to be a light to oneself. Because we have accepted authority, not the medical authority or the scientific authority, but the authority of another who will help us to come out of this darkness, out of this ignorance, out of this confusion. And therefore we have depended on others, whether it be an ideal or that ideal identified with a person. And so we are always obeying. Our whole nature is to obey. And when we do not obey, we revolt, which is another form, which is another reaction, which establishes another form of authority. I don't know if you're following all this. So, here we are investigating together. Therefore, there is no authority. Please understand how important this is. We've all been led up the garden path. You know that phrase, what it means? Led to nowhere. The gurus, the religions, the preachers, the books, all the sayings of so-called wise men have not helped us at all. We are exactly what we were, perhaps slightly different, 1,000 million years ago. I do not know if you realize the tragedy of such a existence. We are so satisfied with little security and deny all freedom. For little security, we'll sell our freedom, physical security. And to be psychologically safe, we give ourselves over to somebody to guide us, to help us, to tell us what to do. This is happening all the world over, politically, religious, and the gurus, all the rest of you know what's happening. See here, what we are trying, you and the speaker are trying to, are not trying, actually investigating into this whole consciousness, which is the essence of human beings. You know, as long as we live within this consciousness, our canvas is very small. Our canvas, that's our life, becomes very shoddy. Little pleasures, anxieties, aches, misery, confusion, and utter, deep loneliness. You may be married, have children. There is this deep, abiding sense of isolation, loneliness. I do not know if you're not aware of it. And that's one of our problems. How to go beyond this. So, as long as we live within this consciousness, our actions, our attitudes, our behavior becomes very, very small within a very limited area. Life is a vast canvas, tremendous canvas, which means that there is a great happiness to live widely, deeply, extensively, without any limitation. But that is denied when we live within that very small space of our consciousness. And so, any serious man who is deeply concerned with human beings, not socially, but concerned, who is deeply, has a feeling for human beings, such man or such woman must be concerned with the transformation of this consciousness. We were talking yesterday about desire. Desire is the want of something. The want, the longing. It may be for clothes, it may be for companionship, it may be for sexual demands, it may be to live happily, to live without quarrels, without conflict. There's a want of something. That is part of desire. The want of something that is not. And also we said yesterday that desire is the movement of sensation with thought, which is desire, with its image, and the desire pursuing that image. And we also said, and I think it's rather important for us to understand this, that when we observe the sunset, man or a woman, or a tree moving in the wind, or the breeze among the leaves, when we see that, observe it with all our senses. I hope you have done it since yesterday and discovered it for yourself. When you have observed something totally with all your senses, there is no desire whatsoever. There is totally different kind of action comes from that. But most of us observe with fragmentary perceptive sensations. Very limited, narrow, and rather shoddy, superficial. And we think it's not superficial when we seek enlightenment. God, or what you like to call it. But that's also very superficial. So, because desire is sensation, thought, and the image of enlightenment of God or whatever you want. It's still part of sensation. So, unless we understand this very deeply, pleasure is the motive of our life in different forms. Sexually, psychologically, sensory pleasures and psychological pleasures. And where there is pleasure, there must be also fear. Fear and pleasure are the two sides of the same coin. And as long as we live within that limited reward and punishment, reward as pleasure, punishment which is fear, grief, as long as we live within that very, very small canvas of life, there will always be pain, suffering, and obviously no love at all. So that's what we were discussing, going together, investigating yesterday evening. And I think it's important also that we go into this question of what is love. Because it's part of our life. You may deny it. You may turn it into pleasure, as most of us done. But that's one of the highest demands of human beings. Without love, one becomes a savage. And that's happening all over the world. When pleasure dominates, is the principle, is the driving force. Then human beings become violent, cruel, and all the ugliness goes on with it. So we are together, please bear in mind, together. Going to inquire, is it all possible, into this question. Bearing in mind, the word is not the thing. The tree is not the actual tree. The word only indicates. But the word is not the actual. A description is not the described. You can describe the mountain, but the actual mountain is not the description. So please bear this in mind, that we are slave to words. Words become important only in communication with one another. But the word is never the thing, the feeling, the fact, the actuality. So the word love is not the actual. That word has been so misused. But now that word has become sensory sexual pleasure right throughout the world. They talk about love of God. God is a projection of your own image, your own thought. Isn't that so? So when you love God, you're loving yourself, your image, which you have created about Him. Right? No, you all are phony. So, we're going to inquire into this enormous question of what love is. Not verbally, but the word is not the thing. Not intellectually, not argumentatively, not offering opinion against opinion. That merely becomes a discussion, a dialectical approach, which is offering one opinion against another opinion, and through opinions find out what is true. That's impossible. Whereas we are trying to explore into ourselves deeply, recognizing the word is never the thing. The mother is never the word. Is not the image, but the fact that she is your mother. So we are going to go into this. Devotion is not love. Will you throw stones at me? The idol, the picture to which you give yourself and all the rest of the puja and ringing bells and all the circus that goes on. And the temples, the idols in the temples are man-made. They are put together by thought. And you are devoted to that which you accept, which pleases you, which will give you comfort, which will psychologically make you feel secure. That you love, which is what you want, you love. Right? Be ruthless in this. So devotion is not love, which is different from respect. And devotion is totally different from respect. That is, to respect another, care for another, consideration for another. But you only have respect for those from whom you can get something, especially if they are politicians. Oh, don't laugh. You love your guru because you want something from him. And you love, you respect those who are politically, religiously, economically superior. but you never respect those who are below you. Have you noticed that? The way you treat your servants, have you noticed it? So, devotion is not love. Where there is respect, there is respect to human beings, not to the image of a human being. Oh, for God's sake. You understand what I'm talking about? Do you think there was love in this country, you would have poor like this? So, can there be love when there is ambition? When you're all climbing the ladder, psychologically as well as physically? So answer it to yourself, not to me. I am not your confessor. I'm asking these questions for you to find out the right answer. Find out. Not just listen and say, well, this is, and go back to your ugly, daily, monstrous life. Can there be love when there is competition between you and another? In the business world and in the so-called spiritual world. Because there too you're climbing the ladder. You understand all this? Need I rub it down? Need I rub every point, every dot, every I and T? And can there be love when you are hurt and you don't know that you are hurt, that you are wounded psychologically, as almost all people are hurt deeply, wounded. And can there be love when there is wound? And can there be love when you, with your image about yourself, not only your own image about yourself, but the ideological image, the business image, the artistic image, the successful image, you've got dozen images or more. With all those images, can there be love? Which means separate. Any form of image, conclusion, separates people. Don't you know all this? So what is love? And what is the relationship of love to compassion? Right? We're going to find out together. Most of us know what suffering is, both physiologically as well as psychologically. Sorrow, pain, grief, anxiety, the awareness of great, deep loneliness, the self-centered activity which gradually encloses you in, which is called individual freedom. So, we know what grief, pain, sorrow is. You lose somebody through accident, through old age, and you are in sorrow for him. You are attached to somebody, a person, or a belief, or an ideal. When that ideal is shaken, you are disturbed. It's a form of sorrow. When you lose all sense of belief, rationalized away, then there is that sense of emptiness. That's a part of sorrow. And there is sorrow when there is death. This is the lot of all human beings. With sense of anxiety, pain, grief, loneliness, and the deep abiding hurts with all the reactions, fear and so on. All this brings grief, sorrow, pain. As we said, the want of something. Because in ourselves we are so insufficient. We fill that insufficiency with knowledge, with books, with people, with ideas, with conclusions. And we know very well that whatever you try to do, you try to fill that emptiness, there will always be emptiness. But we are occupied in filling that emptiness. And so this occupation satisfies us. Have you noticed all this? So, we're going to find out if there is an ending to sorrow. Because without the ending of sorrow, there can be no love. And with the ending of sorrow, compassion comes into being. That's what we're going to go into together. See, we said, love is none of those things which we have described. Not the sexual pleasures, the images, the ideas, the pursuit of pleasure. That's not love. It is desire. But to come upon this love, we say we must suppress desire. So we are everlastingly in conflict with the desire. And we never come upon the perfume of that thing which we call love. That's why it's very important, really, greatly, fundamentally, tremendously it's important to understand desire and not destroy it, not corrupt it, not rationalize it away or control it, but to understand it, to understand the nature of the structure of it, the quality of it, which is sensation plus thought equals desire with its image. Look at it. Watch it in yourself. And if you watch it, you cannot run away from it. If you watch it, it'll tell you the whole story. But you can only watch it if you have no motive, if you don't give it a direction. Just observe as you would observe a small child playing in the garden. He's enjoying himself. He's having fun. So you observe him with care, with attention, with tenderness, with feeling. So in the same way, observe the thing called desire, then you will see that without any discipline, any control, it has its place without distortion. And if you would really come upon this thing called love, through negation come to the positive. To negate everything that's not love. Which is, ambition is not love. Negate it. Put it away completely if you want what that strange thing called love. Competition. Love can only be when there is great humility. Not cultivated humility, which is another form of vanity. So we must inquire, what is sorrow? What do you think is sorrow? I have to go into it. You lose somebody whom you think you love. That love is the image of that somebody which you have. Please, I'm being very precise. I'm not being cruel. We are not romantic or sentimental. This is the actual fact. You lose somebody, your wife, your husband, your brother, your son, and I hope you don't lose them. But you do lose them. What are you losing? Of course, the physical body is gone. But actually, what are you losing? Is it self-pity? Investigate it. Look into yourself. You know what death is. You have seen bodies being carried across the street. So you lose. And what have you lost? And what are you clinging to? The memory? The facing of your loneliness? The attachment from which you derive certain comfort? With the agony of detachment? You follow all this? Are we in communication with each other? Are we sirs? This is your life, not my life. So look at it. And when you lose your brother, your son, your father, your wife, there is sorrow. What generally happens is, we run away from that sorrow. We say, shall I meet my brother, my son, my father, my wife, my sister next life? Follow this carefully, please. That's what you're all doing, reincarnation or something or other, I believe. That gives you comfort. That's an escape from the fact of suffering, right? Do you see that? From the actual fact that my brother is dead, my son is gone, and I'm facing the loss, the companionship, the agony of being alone, the attachment, and therefore the loss of that attachment, the great disturbance, the loneliness, the isolation. All that is what one calls suffering, in which is included also this self-pity. And when one realizes there is such sorrow, there are tears, a great disturbance, both biologically as well as psychologically, and the demand then is for comfort. Haven't you noticed all this? Comfort. And you escape, demanding comfort, you escape. Either through belief, through marrying again, or adopting a son, or God knows what else you all do. So you escape. That is waste of energy. Sorrow is the summation of energy. You understand? It is a tremendous incident, a great shock. And the body is in a state nervous, anxious, tearful. And when you observe this sorrow very carefully, you will see it's a tremendous challenge to your energy. And if you don't escape and completely remain with that, you understand what I'm saying? Remain with sorrow, not escape from it. If you have done it, you will see out of this great incident, I'm not using the word experience purposely, out of this great incident, which demands all your energy, all your attention, but how to escape, then you will see out of that comes passion. Passion is entirely different from lust, with which you are familiar. But most people don't have passion. If you have no passion, you cannot be creative, alive. And when there is this passion, which is compassion. Compassion means passion for all. So the relationship between love and compassion is realized only when there is the understanding of the great incident which is sorrow. And compassion is not a thing which can be cultivated by thought. Love is not pleasure, love is not put together by thought. So, desire and the pursuit of desire is not love, which is pleasure. Of course, there is enjoyment. You understand? Do you? There is the enjoyment of something beautiful. Which it, have I time to go into this? Yes. Do you know what beauty is? Don't you want to find out? Or are you satisfied saying, yes, this I don't understand, it's perfectly all right. I've got that beautiful tree, that's enough, good enough. Don't you want to find out what beauty is? Because beauty is related to love. Not to lust, not to desire, not to pleasure. So we're going to go into this question, what is beauty, very briefly. Investigate together. You know, when you see something like a magnificent mountain, majestic, snow-clad, reaching up to the heavens, that great range of hills covered with snow and valleys and lakes, for a second or for a few minutes, that greatness shocks you. You're completely silent. Have you noticed it? That is, the greatness of that mountain absorbs you. You are for that moment non-existent. You understand what I'm saying? Have you ever seen, hasn't it happened to you people? Huh? God's sake, what? That is, the greatness of that mountain, the majesty, the immense solidity of it, the changeless face of that, the beauty of it, the grandeur, is so impressive that you are, for a second or two, you are not. You give a child a toy. The toy absorbs the child. And the child is very quiet because the toy is so amusing, so complicated, you can play with it. And he forgets himself with the toy. Haven't you noticed that? You must have noticed this. Haven't you? Mothers, fathers. What has happened there? The toy has absorbed the boy, the girl. Same way the mountain has absorbed you. You are non-existent, right? And an idea, an image, which is not the mountain, also absorbs you. When you are not, beauty is. You understand? You understand this? No, I'm afraid you don't. All that you know is being absorbed by a toy. And where you are playing with the toy or looking at the mountain for a second, you are quiet. And when there is that immense sense of space, which is that silence which brings about that mountain, that mountain brings about you as a human being with all your problems, all your misery, confusion, don't exist. It is that moment is the essence of beauty. You understand this? So love is that beauty when you are not. You understand? I weep for you, I'm actually weeping for you because you have none of these things. You have a little canvas, a little hole in which you are living. And you call that life. And everything else is not. Neither love, nor beauty, nor compassion. But you're full of knowledge of books. You can quote Gita up and down. So, you can only have, there can be that love, that compassion, that beauty only when you are not. That is the truth. Then you will ask me, how am I? Tell me the method to get rid of myself. You understand? The method. That means tell me what to do. So you will practice it, mechanically become a machine, and you have lost the whole thing. You understand what I'm saying? That's what you have done. You have lost all life because you have followed systems, methods, accepted authority. And you are empty shells with lots of words. So, if you want to investigate, go into this question of what love and beauty is. You must understand the great importance of desire. Become aware, the movement of sensation, and thought comes into that sensation, and desire is born out of that, and desire creates the image and pursues that image. Watch it, live with it. Have you seen lilies in the water? Dirty water. So, when you watch desire, a perfect flower is born. So from the beginning of our life, when we are born till we die, we live in a very, very small area of which is called our consciousness. And we never seem to break through that. We never want to break through it. We accept life as it is, the misery, the confusion, all the rest of it. So we become machines, glorified clerks. And if those of us who are serious, we have to go into all these questions. Not answer them, not try to find an answer for them, but live with the question. You understand? And the question tells you, in the question itself are all the answers, if you know how to listen. So a mind A human being that has no love, he becomes a machine, a savage. And that's what the modern world is producing. They're caught between Marxism, you understand, different forms of Marxism and analysis. Have you noticed this? That the world, right through the world, is caught. Marxism, Karl Marx, the communist and so on. That Karl Marx, Marxism and analysis both deny love. Right? So, observe all this, be aware of it in yourself, and out of that awareness comes an extraordinary flower blooms.